My husband asked if we'd host Mother's Day, but he forgot I swore. We'd never celebrate his mom again. He asked like it was nothing, like she hadn't skipped her own birthday to make a point. But I remember the effort, the silence, the hurt, and I meant it when I said never again. When I married my husband, I knew I wasn't just marrying him, I was marrying into his family. That's what people always say, right? They act like it's just a cute phrase, something to laugh about at bridal showers or squeeze into toasts. But for me, it wasn't a phrase. It was a warning I didn't take seriously enough. I met Daniel when I was 19. We were just kids really figuring out life, chasing dreams and falling for each other faster than we could handle. But somehow, through the chaos of college years and first jobs, we stuck. Now, 8 years later, we're married, settled in our own home, and known among both our families as the couple who always hosts. I love hosting. Always have. There's something special about transforming a house into a place people want to be. Candles lit, music just low enough, not to drown out laughter, food that makes people close their eyes when they take the first bite. That's my love language. It's how I show up, how I say I care. Daniel gets that. He's the same way in his own way. More casual about it, but just as passionate. So it became our thing, hosting birthdays, holidays, random get-togethers. Everyone in his family knew that if there was a celebration coming up, chances were we'd be the ones planning it. But if I loved his family, I tolerated his mother, his mom. My mother-in-law, or Mael as I'll call her, has always been complicated. From the beginning, our relationship was rocky, like walking on gravel barefoot, not explosive, not dramatic, just uncomfortable. Passive-aggressive comments, little jabs, disguised as advice, that sense of always being evaluated, but never fully approved of. To be fair, it's not that we were openly hostile. There were hugs, polite conversations, smiles at family dinners, but they were surface level. I always felt like a guest in her presence, not a daughter-in-law, but a woman auditioning to be in her son's life. And after all these years, that hasn't changed. Strangely enough, despite our uneasy dynamic, I got along well with the rest of Daniel's family. His siblings are fun, warm, occasionally messy, in the way all families are, but mostly kind. We built our own rhythms over the years. Group chats, family game nights, potluck dinners at each other's homes. Everyone contributed. Everyone felt included. Or so I thought. The shift began quietly. One of Daniel's sisters, let's call her Lila, started pulling away. Not in a dramatic way, but slowly, deliberately. She stopped replying in the family group chat as much. She missed 1 or 2 events, citing vague excuses. At first, we thought she was just busy. Then came the drama. Daniel had planned a birthday dinner for his mom a few months back. Like always, he sent out the invite in the family group. Chat, same place, same time, same informal style, as always. We all knew the drill. Bring a dish, help clean up, celebrate together. Except this time, Lila took offense. She told their mom that she hadn't received a proper invitation, that Daniel didn't have the decency to call her directly, and that showing up to the party would make her feel like an intruder. Those were her words, apparently. An intruder. It confused me. Everyone else had been fine with the group message. Daniel had even double-checked that she was still in the chat. She hadn't left it. She'd read the message. But somehow, this had become a personal attack in her eyes. The next part caught us off guard. Daniel's mom called him, not to clarify, not to ask gently if there had been a misunderstanding, but to scold him. She said he needed to apologize to Lila personally, call her and make it right. According to her, he had excluded one of her children, and that was unacceptable. Daniel tried to explain. She got the message. No one else got a formal invite. She's welcome, like everyone else. But MIL wouldn't budge. When the day of the birthday party came, I threw myself into it like I always do. I cooked, I cleaned, I decorated. I made sure the house felt warm, inviting like a home should feel. I went out of my way to make it special for his mom, despite our differences, because that's what you do for family. Even when it's hard, everyone came, except 2 people. Lila and their mom. MIL never showed up. We found out later, through another sister, that Emil had refused to attend because she would not share a meal with someone who blatantly excluded one of her children. That someone, of course, was Daniel, my husband. The same man who'd spent hours prepping and planning just to be told his effort meant nothing. We were stunned, hurt, embarrassed. But instead of letting the mood sour, we made the best of it. We cut the cake ourselves, toasted anyway. laughed with the rest of the family, and carried on like it was just another night, because it was in the end just another family gathering. But when the last guest left and the house went quiet, Daniel turned to me with an apology. He knew it had taken so much out of me. He knew how hard I had worked. He knew what his mom's absence meant. And all I could do was smile tiredly softly and say what had been forming in my chest all night. We're not doing this again. We're not celebrating your mom in our home anymore. He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, he said, I understand, and I believed him. For a while, after that birthday incident, I thought we had reached a quiet understanding. Daniel had agreed we wouldn't host his mom again, and I took that as a small but meaningful boundary. Finally, something just for me, a decision that respected the invisible emotional labor I had carried for years. I didn't expect an apology from his mom. I wasn't holding out hope for some big tearful reckoning, where she'd suddenly realize how dismissive, how hurtful she'd been. That wasn't who she was. If there's one thing I've learned about my Mill, it's that she's fiercely loyal to a fault, especially when it comes to her children. But that loyalty often expresses itself in the ugliest ways, blame-shifting, dramatizing, rewriting events to make herself the victim and her kids martyrs. Still, I moved on, or at least I thought I did. We went back to normal life, work errands, movie nights, little joys between the stress. Daniel didn't bring up his mom, I didn't either. I figured we were both just trying to let it go in our own way. Then came the question. We were standing in the kitchen one afternoon, casually making lunch, when Daniel, without any warning or build-up, asked, should we invite everyone over for Mother's Day? I froze. The words hit me like a slap. Not because he was suggesting something ridiculous. It was a fair question in theory. We always hosted Mother's Day was coming up. He might have thought it was worth trying again. But what caught me off guard was how casually he said it, like nothing had happened. Like we hadn't just watched his mother boycott her own birthday because of a ridiculous misunderstanding she refused to clarify. I didn't even raise my voice. I just said, no. He blinked, clearly caught off guard. No. I repeated, SIL is still behaving the same. Your mom never apologized, and I refused to have a redo. We already agreed, no more hosting for her. His eyebrows knit together, but this isn't her birthday. I exhaled. That kind of technicality. Well, it's not exactly the same thing. Logic infuriated me. It doesn't matter. I told him. Anything that involves celebrating your mom is now off the table, at least when it comes to our house. You want to take her out to dinner? Fine. You want to bring a store-bought cake to one of your sister's houses? Be my guest. But I'm done spending hours prepping, cooking, cleaning for someone who can't even acknowledge the effort, much less respect it. Daniel stared at me, eyes narrowed, not angry, but confused, like he was looking at someone he didn't fully recognize. Is this permanent? He asked slowly. Yes, I said, this is a boundary, a real one. He nodded, but not in agreement. It was more like he was trying to calculate something in his head. So, you're saying you forgave her, but you're still punishing her? That stung. This isn't punishment. I snapped the first edge of anger creeping into my voice. This is self-preservation. Forgiveness doesn't mean I give her unlimited access to hurt me again. It means I'm not holding on to hate, but I am protecting myself. He crossed his arms and leaned against the counter. That's not how forgiveness works. My jaw tightened. Then maybe your definition needs updating. We stood in silence for a beat. He looked frustrated, maybe disappointed, but I didn't flinch. I couldn't, because I knew that if I wavered now, this cycle would never end. The expectation would always be that I host, cook, serve, and smile regardless of how I'm treated. Finally, Daniel sighed and said, okay, we won't host this year. It was supposed to feel like a win, and in a way, it did. But his tone, it wasn't agreement. It was resignation, like he thought I was being unreasonable, but didn't have the energy to argue anymore, and that hurt more than I expected. We had always been on the same page about so many things. Boundaries, fairness, mutual respect. But now I could feel a quiet divide growing between us. Not because of the decision itself, but because of what it represented. To him, maybe it looked like I was holding a grudge. To me, it felt like I was finally taking back a piece of myself. Mother's Day crept up quietly the way difficult anniversaries do. There wasn't a marked countdown, no family group chat buzzing with excitement like in previous years, just a steady silence that, oddly enough, made everything feel louder. Daniel didn't bring it up again after our last conversation, But I could see it on his face every time he scrolled past a social media post about brunch ideas or saw a commercial with smiling mothers being served breakfast in bed. He wasn't sulking. Not exactly, but he was. Distant. He'd agreed not to host. That was something. But I could feel the weight of his disappointment with every wordless dinner and every barely there goodnight kiss. I tried to shake the guilt to remind myself that this boundary wasn't unreasonable, that I had supported his family for years through birthdays, holidays, impromptu barbecues. I had opened our home fed. Everyone smiled through passive-aggressive comments and his mother's thinly veiled snubs. And when she didn't show up for her own birthday, when she made a public statement by boycotting a party, I had spent days preparing. The message was clear. I wasn't part of the family. I was disposable. A bystander in their drama, easily blamed. So, no, I didn't regret setting a line, but that didn't mean it didn't hurt to stand on the other side of it. The day before Mother's Day, Daniel told me he was going to one of his sister's houses. She's hosting something small. Just cake and coffee, he said. He was looking at the floor when he said it. I nodded. That's fine. You sure? He asked, finally meeting my eyes. I meant what I said. Store-bought food at someone else's house. I don't care. I just won't be part of anything where I'm expected to serve someone who won't even acknowledge me. He hesitated. You're still welcome to come. You know, it's not like Mom said anything about you. I almost laughed. She didn't have to. Daniel, she made it clear exactly where I stand. He didn't argue, just gave a tight nod and left the room. I don't think he realized how much that small moment hurt, how deeply I felt the distance growing not just between me and his mom, but between the two of us. Mother's Day morning came. I made myself a nice breakfast, read a book, and ignored my phone. It was peaceful. At first. But by the afternoon, the silence turned heavy. I kept imagining them all gathered around the table at his sister's house, laughing, telling stories, his mom acting like nothing happened. His sister probably serving the cake this time, probably cracking jokes about how they made do without me. Again, I wondered if anyone asked where I was. I wondered if Daniel defended me. When he came home, he was unusually quiet. He kissed me on the forehead like he used to back when things were simpler, but said very little. How was it? I asked. He shrugged. Fine. She say anything? Not really, he said. Then after a pause, she asked if you were okay. I raised an eyebrow. Just that he nodded. That was the moment I felt something shift in me. It wasn't rage, it wasn't even bitterness, just clarity. His mom wasn't going to apologize. She wasn't going to change. She wasn't going to see my years of effort or my hurt feelings or my quiet retreat as anything worth addressing. And Daniel, he might understand it logically, he might even agree with me in theory, but emotionally, he still hoped I'd fold, that I'd let it go. That one day, I'd go back to pretending we were all fine. But we weren't. That night, as we got ready for bed, he finally said, I know this is hard, but I really think you're holding on to something bigger. It's not just the birthday or Mother's Day. It's everything. I looked at him and nodded. You're right. It is everything. It's years of being treated like I'm temporary. Years of being excluded from real consideration. Years of you watching it happen and doing the bare minimum to defend me. That landed harder than I expected. His expression crumpled. He wasn't angry. He was hurt. But I didn't take it back. I'm not saying this to attack you. I said, softening. I'm saying it because I need you to really hear me for once. I'm done sacrificing my emotional peace to protect someone else's comfort. He sat on the edge of the bed, staring down at his hands. So what do we do now? I sat beside him. We move forward, but not on autopilot. We create new rules, real ones together. Because I'm not going to keep playing a part in a family dynamic that doesn't value me. He didn't respond right away, but for the first time in days, he reached out and took my hand. It had been a few weeks since Mother's Day, and although the house was quieter than usual, something about the silence felt stronger, more deliberate. Daniel and I hadn't fought since that night. We hadn't even discussed his mom much, but the tension that used to hang in the background like static had started to fade. It wasn't perfect. Some days he'd retreat a little. I could tell he missed the simplicity of not having to choose, but I didn't push. I gave him space while still holding firm to the boundary we set together. I knew how hard it was for him being caught in the middle of his wife and his mother, but I wasn't going to shrink myself just to make peace for someone who never extended it to me. Then out of nowhere, she called. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was home early, sorting laundry in the living room, when Daniel's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. Mom lit up the screen. I froze. I didn't answer it, of course, just stared at the name while my heart thudded in my chest. A few minutes later, Daniel came in from the garage. He noticed the missed call right away, frowned slightly, and didn't say a word as he called her back. I tried not to listen. I failed. "Hey, Mom," he said, his tone neutral. "Yeah, I saw you called." "No, she's not here. She's working late today. I wasn't working late." There was a pause, and then he said something like, "Well, we agreed not to host anymore." "Yeah, that includes birthdays too." Another pause. His tone dropped lower, tighter, because she felt disrespected, because you didn't show up for something she worked hard on. "No, Mom, this isn't just about that one day. It's years of things." There was silence then long enough for me to realize she was pushing back. "No, I'm not taking sides," he finally said. "I'm supporting my wife." "That's what I'm doing." I stood there in the hallway, half-folded towel in my hands, feeling like someone had cracked a window in a room I didn't realize was suffocating me. When he hung up, he didn't look at me right away. He just placed the phone down, then turned and met my eyes. "She wanted to know if we were still doing Dad's birthday dinner." He said. "I told her we'd go, but not host." I nodded. "Thank you." He exhaled like he'd been holding it in for weeks. "She doesn't get it. She probably never will." "I know," I said. "I think she's waiting for you to apologize." I blinked. "Apologize for what?" He gave a tired shrug. "Not sure. For making a boundary. Maybe. For not bending first." We both laughed bitterly. But that night, something changed again. We sat on the couch, just the two of us, with no TV, no phones, just talking about everything. About how early on in our relationship, I'd hoped I'd grow close to his mom, how I used to bake her favorite cookies for holidays, how I smiled through conversations where she never once asked how my job was or how my family was doing. I kept thinking if I tried hard enough, she'd come around. I said, "He was quiet. She doesn't dislike you." He finally said, "She just doesn't know how to include someone who doesn't play by her rules." "I'm not going to beg for scraps of kindness," I replied, "and I don't think I should have to." "You shouldn't," he said. It was the first time I truly believed he meant it. We didn't go back to hosting after that. Not for birthdays, not for holidays. We started doing smaller things. Brunches with friends, cozy nights with his siblings, who actually respected us, quick dinners at his dad's house when things felt light enough to handle. And as for his mom, she stayed distant, cold in group chats, courteous in public, never warm. But we stopped needing her to be. I think that's what people don't understand about boundaries. They're not revenge. They're not punishment. They're a way to protect yourself from being stretched until you disappear. Daniel and I still had hard days where he missed the old routine or where I had to remind myself not to overextend, just to feel accepted. But those days became fewer and further. Between the biggest surprise, the peace that came from letting go of trying to be the perfect daughter-in-law, I didn't need to win her over anymore. I didn't need to carry the weight of her expectations. All I needed was the home Daniel and I were building together, brick by honest brick. Time passed, seasons changed, and with them so did we. It's strange how the absence of something can make space for something else, something better. That first Mother's Day we didn't host felt like a rebellion, but the second, it felt like clarity. Daniel and I started creating new traditions, ones that didn't revolve around obligation or trying to please someone who never saw the effort. Instead of prepping the house for a crowd or answering texts from his mother passive-aggressively asking if everyone was really invited, we woke up slowly. We made brunch together. Sometimes we invited my mom over, who always arrived with homemade muffins and a warm hug. Other times, we just had a quiet day for the two of us. That year, we planted flowers in the front yard on Mother's Day. While we worked, Daniel looked up from where he was kneeling and said, "This feels better." I didn't need to ask what he meant. Later that summer, we hosted a game night with friends and a couple of his siblings, those who still spoke to us freely, who hadn't made our boundary a battlefield. We laughed, we grilled burgers. There was no tension in the air, no carefully worded invitations, just people who wanted to be there. And as we were cleaning up, his youngest sister pulled me aside, the one who never quite took sides, who mostly stayed quiet during the whole ordeal. I just wanted to say, she began awkwardly. "I think you were right." I raised my eyebrows. "About what?" "Setting that boundary, about not hosting anymore. It used to be exhausting." Her words landed like a small gift in my chest. I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear that. "You guys made it okay for the rest of us to stop trying so hard." she added. That night, after everyone had gone, I told Daniel what she said. He just smiled and pulled me close. You know, he said softly, I think Mom always expected people to orbit around her, but we stopped, and it drove her crazy. I don't feel guilty anymore, I admitted. He kissed my forehead. Good. Because you shouldn't, I won't lie. Some parts of me still grieve. Not for his mother exactly, but for the version of life I hoped we'd have. One where she and I shared recipes. One where she looked at me like family. One where my effort wasn't invisible. But in grieving, that I also let go of the pressure to perform. Now we spend holidays, how we want. Sometimes with family, sometimes with friends, sometimes just us. And as for Daniel and his mom, their relationship is distant, polite. She still tries to draw lines in the sand with silence and expectations, but he doesn't follow her lead anymore. He walks his own line beside me. I know she thinks I'm the reason things changed, that I poisoned him against her, that I'm the wedge. But here's the truth. I didn't push Daniel away from her. She just never made room for us both. Maybe one day she'll see that, maybe not. Either way, I've stopped waiting, because now every choice we make, every quiet Sunday, every peaceful holiday, every small moment of joy, that's ours alone. It's a celebration. Of the life we chose, of the peace we fought for, of the love that doesn't ask us to shrink or perform. We didn't host Mother's Day that year. We won't host it next year either. And that, to me, is the most honest celebration of all. If this story resonated with you, or if you've ever had to set boundaries to protect your peace, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more real-life dramas just like this one. Your support helps us share more voices, more moments, and more truth. See you in the next story.